World War II was the age of the tank. Legends like the Tiger, the T-34, and the Sherman dominated the battlefields and our history books. But for every legend, there's a lemon. Today, we read diving into the scrapyard of history to uncover the 10 worst tanks of the Second World War. These are the clunkers, the death traps, and the outright disasters that should have never left the factory floor. Let's kick off our list with number 10, a tank so bad it never even saw combat. The British cruiser Mark V Covenanter. Rolled out in 1940, it was meant to be a fast, modern cruiser tank. The problem? Its engine was crammed into the rear with a cooling system at the front. This brilliant design choice meant the pipes ran through the crew compartment, turning it into a sauna on tracks. The engines constantly overheated, making the Covenanter incredibly unreliable. It was quickly relegated to training duties in Britain, where its crews probably spent more time waiting for a tow than actually driving. A complete waste of resources. Coming in at number 9 is Japan's Type 89 Igo. Now, to be fair, when it was designed in 1929, it was pretty decent for its time. But by the time Japan went to war in the Pacific in 1941, it was a fossil. Its armor was paper-thin, and its low-velocity 57mm gun was more suited for knocking down mud huts than fighting other tanks. When the Type 89 faced off against American Stuarts and Shermans, it was hopelessly outclassed. It was slow, poorly armed, and offered almost no protection. A relic from another era sent to fight a modern war. At number 8, we have a tank that many of you will recognize. The American M3 Lee, or the Grant as the British called it. On paper, it looked good. It had a 75mm main gun and a 37mm gun in a turret. The problem was the layout. The main gun was stuck in a sponson on the side of the hull, which meant you had to turn the entire tank to aim it left or right. This also made the M3 incredibly tall, a huge inviting target for German anti-tank gunners. It was a clumsy, compromised stopgap measure, rushed into service to fill a desperate need, and it showed. Next up, at number 7, is the Soviet T-26. This was the most numerous tank in the world in 1941 with over 11,000 built. But quantity does not equal quality. Based on a British Vickers design from the 1920s, the T-26 had tragically thin armor, just 15mm at its thickest. It was vulnerable to literally everything on the battlefield, from German anti-tank guns to heavy machine guns. Soviet crews grimly nicknamed it a coffin on tracks. During Operation Barbarossa, thousands of T-26s were destroyed, often without even seeing the enemy. For our number 6 spot, we're heading back to Britain for the infantry tank Mark I. Better known as the Matilda I, this thing was designed with one idea in mind: infantry support. And that meant armor. It had up to 60mm of protection, which was fantastic for 1940. Nothing the Germans had could reliably penetrate it. But that's where the good news ends. To keep the weight down, it was armed with just a single machine gun. No cannon. So while it was immune to enemy fire, it couldn't fire back effectively. Plus, it was agonizingly slow, crawling at a top speed of just 8 miles per hour, slower than the infantry it was supposed to support. It was a walking bunker, but not much of a tank. Halfway through our list, at number 5, we have the infamous Type 94 Tankette from Japan. Calling this a tank is being generous. It was more like a tiny armored tractor. Its armor was so thin, a maximum of 12mm, that standard rifle rounds could punch right through it at close range. Its only armament was a single machine gun. The crew of 2 was crammed inside a tiny non-air-conditioned steel box. It was used for scouting and infantry support, but in any real tank-on-tank fight, it was just a motorized coffin for its crew. At number 4 is another Japanese tank, the Type 95 Hago. This was Japan's most produced tank of the war, and it saw action everywhere from China to the Pacific Islands. But it suffered from the same problems as most Japanese armor. Its 37mm gun was okay in the 1930s, but by the time it faced American Shermans, it was like a pea shooter against a brick wall. Its shells would literally bounce off. The armor was thin, and to make matters worse, it ran on a diesel engine that, while less flammable than gasoline, was still vulnerable. Its weak design and armament made it easy prey for Allied forces. Now for our number 3 spot, an American tank that started strong but aged poorly, the M3 Stuart. Early in the war, the Stuart was a decent light tank. It was fast, reliable, and its 37mm gun was effective against early war Japanese and German armor. But as the war dragged on and enemy tanks got bigger and tougher, the Stuart's gun became useless. By 1943, it could barely scratch the paint on a Panzer IV or a Tiger. American crews in the Pacific nicknamed it the Purple Heart Box, because getting assigned to one felt like a guaranteed ticket to getting wounded. It was eventually phased out of frontline combat roles in Europe, used mostly for reconnaissance. Coming in hot at number 2 is a German entry, the Panzer III. The Panzer III. The tank that spearheaded the Blitzkrieg across Europe. Yes, while it was an excellent and feared tank in 1940 and 1941, it became obsolete very, very quickly. And now, for the undisputed worst tank of World War II. At number 1 we have the British infantry tank Mark IV, the Churchill. This tank was a complete and utter disaster from the start. Rushed into production, it was plagued by catastrophic mechanical failures. During its combat debut at the disastrous Dieppe raid in 1942, many Churchills didn't even make it off the beach. Some broke down, others got stuck. The early models were armed with a pathetic 2-pounder gun that was useless against anything but light armor. It was also incredibly slow, a sitting duck for German 88s. While later versions of the Churchill were heavily modified and became much more effective, the initial design was one of the most disappointing failures of the war. It was unreliable, undergunned, and slow, a terrible combination for any armored vehicle. So there you have it, the 10 vehicles that prove that not all tanks are created equal. From overheating engines to paper-thin armor, these machines represent the dark side of wartime innovation. Which one do you think was the absolute worst? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into military history, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.